Welcome back, you filthy exiles. So we got a bit of an update today for the patch 0.2.0H, and there's a fair few more changes coming to Path of Exile 2, which looks pretty good so far. Like, I'm not dissatisfied by this patch at all. It's actually not a bad patch. But anyway, let's have a quick talk through it. So these are the notes that are up on screen that they provided, or at least the overview sort of patch details. So we're getting private leagues now in Path of Exile 2 from what I can see at this stage. So what a private league is, for anyone who doesn't know what that is, basically you can have your own isolated league for a fee. And usually it's just for the in-game points or coins or whatever they're called in Path of Exile. And basically this is just like if you want to refresh the league for any reason. I don't necessarily see a big need for this. Generally, like, you probably won't have the player base to attract an open market, so this is probably going to be more SSF based. But if you did want to do this, it's available. It could just be them trying to increase a revenue source or something like that with Path of Exile 2 at the moment. But who really knows at this stage? Do I think it's necessary? Not really. I don't know why they would do this in EA, but anyway, whatever. Doesn't really matter. It's in Path of Exile 1, been around for a very long time, and right now it's basically keeping PoE 1 going because we haven't had any updates on 3.26 yet, which is a little bit disappointing. But I think they're due to do that in the next month, so hopefully we get some information very soon. The next one is quick use currency buttons on Strongbox and Essences. So if you didn't know, basically if you are farming Strongbox or Essences, you can actually like Alcorb and identify Strongboxes and things like that and corrupt them to make them more potent, which will mean you get better drops. This was very similar to Path of Exile 1, but it does mean that in the past you've had to just basically open up your inventory window and do this manually. So they're adding quick use buttons and labels basically so that you can just click the button based on, hopefully this maps to your overall like currency that's in your inventory, like not just in your active inventory but also in your currency stash tabs. But it's probably not going to work like that. Means that you need to carry like a stack of currency on your character at all times to be able to use it. If it is a normal rarity, it will display an Orb of Transmute, and if it has one modifier, then it'll use an Augment Orb, which is pretty normal. It'll also be able to have buttons for Alchemy Orbs, Exalts, Regals. They've intentionally not included currency like Divine Orbs, as this, yeah, so if you had a div in your stash and you accidentally divined a strong box, you'd be pretty annoyed with that outcome, to be honest with you. Essences have also received the same change, but with Val Orbs to corrupt them into, like, I think this is good QoL, right? So quality of life. So this has actually always been a bit painful in PoE 1, and hopefully they do the same thing in PoE 1 to add this as an overall like, if they're using the same engine, they should be able to do this. I don't know why it took this long to do this, to be honest with you, but anyway, this is a good change. Breach improvements. We've had significant issues with spawning monsters in very narrow and tight areas. Yep, 100% agree with that. It was expected to be worse in those areas because you can only fit so many monsters in a given space. This made breach encounters worse than we wanted and resulted in very boring experiences where you felt like you failed even though there was little you could do about it. We've made a change to how monsters spawn in breaches to be more reliable. This drastically raises the minimum experience of a breach encounter. Okay. Additionally, we have changed the minimum time of a breach, assuming no monsters are killed, to 20 seconds from 12 seconds. So that's actually a good change. So they last a hell of a lot longer by default. We've also made the time extension granted by killing monsters account for monster power. This means if you kill magic or rare monsters during the breach, it will extend the time for more than killing normal monsters, which is an incentive to buff up breaches with the skill points as well on the Atlas tree. Previously, they spoke about dropping fewer stacks of splinters in larger quantities, but instead of that, we're making a more drastic improvement. We will now vacuum up all the... So they're adding a breach vacuum, which I actually think is pretty good. I sort of like that. That's better than just like picking up large bulk stacks. So I sort of like that, but it actually defies their methodology where they always just wanted you to have to click to pick things up. So this is going to be interesting if they're going to change their mindset on this, and if they're going to do this in PoE 2, can they please do it in PoE 1? But yeah, it's very interesting. This has been something that they were quite divisive on for quite some time in PoE1. They were like, we're going to drop bigger stacks, but we're not going to make it auto compile into your inventory. And that was a deliberate design choice. And now they're basically walking this back, which, yeah, is very interesting because it proves a very big change to the direction of GGG if this is their methodology on it. But I'm not complaining. I think it's great. I think less button clicks means less RSI and carpal tunnel, so I'm all for it. Asmerian Wisp improvements. So Asmerian Wisps have received two changes. The first is that when you activate a second Wisp while pursuing one already, the Wisp will now always target the same rare monster as the one you're already chasing. This was uncommon due to the campaign and mostly presented itself in endgame. To be honest with you, I just don't even waste my time with Wisps because they're too slow and there's no real payoff. The other change is that the Spirit of the Spring Hare and Spirit of the Fox were far too rare. We've made these 3 times more common, so they're just basically just leveling this out. To be honest with you, like, I just don't think this mechanic is very good. Like, I think it just deliberately slows down your gameplay, and I usually just totally ignore it because it's pretty worthless anyway. So, like, some people may disagree with that position, but I just don't really think it's that good, and it probably needs to be revised a bit as to reward and risk and how it's sort of, speeded up a bit so you're not slowed down unnecessarily. I just don't think this is the best mechanic. I think it's like trying to compensate for Bestiary. But Bestiary was quite good. Like, this is not an improvement on Bestiary or even like, infusing enemies or anything like that. It's just not a good improvement. But anyway, is what it is. Rogue Exile visibility improvements. Yes, I often cannot see the Rogue Exile even though their status bar is on the screen. Rogue Exiles had one main issue. Often you would be clearing through the map and all of a sudden have a large life bar. Yes, that's true. At the top of your screen with no connection to a boss or monster. This was because the Rogue Exile had a very large aggro range. We've reduced this aggro range so they are far more common on screen before it appears. That way you see them before the life bar. But yeah, because basically just looking for the life bar at this stage, right? The second issue is that even when you did find one, they were on screen, you could barely see them in darker maps. In order to elevate this, we've both added mini-map icons to them once they've engaged in combat, and we've made the light on them far brighter to help them stand out and be more obvious when surrounded by other enemies. I wish, to be honest with you, that they were stacked with more rare items. Like, I have all the points selected for Rogue Exiles, and like the probability of them rocking up into a map makes no sense because I can have above 100% probability to have a Rogue Exile on the Atlas, or the Atlas passive tree, but they didn't. That would indicate they should be at least one Rogue Exile on every single map I play. But that's so far from how the reality plays out with this mechanic that this just needs to be totally reworked as to how the stat bonuses actually apply to how Rogue Exiles actually spawn. I think I've spent in the patch 2 or like the point 2 patch like at least like 200 plus hours now just like farming maps, and yeah, they are still way too rare. But anyway, like they do pop up, and then when they pop up they're not really fruitful to farm because I'm not seeing any Chernobyls drop or anything, which is why items like Chernobyl are so rare. Further item drop improvements. So they did a massive patch to overall loot drops, but there are still some outliers we're working on improving. In 0.20H, we're going to make perfect jewel orbs and level 20 uncut skill and spirit gems significantly more common. Yep, it's still like 200 exalt for perfect jeweler orbs, which is absolutely ridiculous. And level 20, it's like, I think it's around about the same or a little bit higher than 200 exalt. It's just not practical and it's ridiculous. These will still be relatively rare, but it is often the case where people would get far into the end game. Yeah, this should not be the case. Like, you should get access to 6 links a lot earlier, and they fixed it with 5 links where they're dropping more consistently in the end game now, which is fantastic. But yeah, like 6 link is a pretty huge upgrade for any build, to be honest with you. It's a massive upgrade. And the other problem with level 20 uncut skill gems is Why do you only get access to that at level 90? I find that quite ridiculous. Like, you should be able to get access. If you've got the sufficient attribute points already, you should get access to it at like level 8, at like level 80 as a cap, or 85. Like, level 90 is a real push to get a character to level 90 and not get bored with the game or the character. So I think this is a bit ridiculous. Like, even still, in the essence to how these work, it needs to be redesigned as to the level capping of gems. Like, it's forcing players to get to level 90, which is crazy. Like, why do you have to get forced to get to level 90 to be able to use a skill gem? Like, I don't recall any item in Path of Exile 1 that was designed that way. And generally every item is usable by, I think, level 78, something like that, in Path of Exile 2 currently. So that makes no sense based on how the rest of all gear works in the entire game. Item labels, additions to important items. For those not using custom item filters, and we're in the end game, you might have observed some more important items not being obvious enough. We have added outlines to the labels for precursor tablets, expedition logbooks, and like, that's what loot filters are for. Like, everybody uses custom loot filters. That's just irrelevant change that didn't need to be made. Shrine improvements. We made a few changes to shrines. Firstly, we've disabled the greed shrine and corrupting shrine. They were just bad, and often you right clicked off the buff because converting good items into gold or corrupting items is really beneficial. 100% agree. That's a stupid mod. On top of that, we've made some of the rarer shrines, such as the Diamond Shrine and Divine Shrine, appear far more often, and we've extended the duration of almost all shrines. Some of the shrines now last 90 seconds from 45 seconds, and some 60 seconds from 45 seconds. That's not a bad change. I don't think that's a bad change. I don't think I've found any Divine Shrines at this stage, and I've played quite a few maps this league, or this major patch for PoE 2. So yeah, this is like, I welcome this change. Also, if they could fix the way that you click on shrines, I don't understand why they made shrines so difficult to click on versus PoE 1. You could just like boop, and you get the shrine buff. Now you got to be positioned like above the shrine or in a certain specific position on the shrine, and you're constantly getting blocked by enemy packs, which is an absolute pain in the butt. So this just needs a lot of work done as an overall. Shrines still just don't work mechanically the way they should. New stash tabs. This is pretty self-explanatory. I really like this. They're adding a ritual stash tab for your omens and Audience of the King fragments. We're also adding the socketable stash tab, which will hold your runes, talismans, and soul cords. Thank God. I've got like a whole tab, which is just disaster with this, so we're gonna have to reorganize everything. This tab comes with a button that allows you to upgrade your runes. Yeah, which is basically like the old Essence tab in PoE 1. Instead of having to use the Reforge bench, we're already starting to realize that things like the Reforge bench is not well designed. They'll be up for sale in the microtransaction store shortly after the patch deployed. Like, I wonder if they're going to repurpose MTX or stash tabs from PoE 1 for this. Like, that would be logical. But, okay, alright. I'll probably buy it either way because I needs it, so. Alright, MISC other improvements. Here's a quick fire list of other changes that are coming. By the way, this patch is set to come in by the end of the week. So like Thursday or Friday, something like that. They've updated the visibility of the corridor skill for the Arbiter of Ash. We've added bindable actions to be able to use, to be able to quickly allocate strength, dex, and yeah, that's a bit of a pain. We've added a new batch of submissions to the Twilight Reliquary key. We'll be allowing charms to go into the flask stash. There you go. And any stash with a flask affinity set. So, alright, cool. We've added a quick travel button for town on the right hand side of the waypoint screen. Okay. We're adding the shortcut control right click to bulk move currency items of the same type between inventories. This is common mostly when doing larger trades. Yeah, okay. We're adding a filter property to be able to filter unidentified items by their tier. We have fixed 15 separate client and instance crashes, which is good. They estimate to deploy this by the end of the week. Then they have many more changes to make, and we'll immediately start on our next update, bringing even more improvements to gameplay and quality of life. Honestly, just skill rebalancing would be really good right now, and bringing up the bottom end skills and many skills, just like pushing them up into a more workable position. And even current skills and stuff like that. Deepest Tower, as good of an item as it is, should not be a required item on almost every single build to be able to get the best of damage out of skills that are underperforming, like Incendiary Shot and stuff like that. You should just be able to scale it natively, and it should be quite a good skill either way. But that's just my take on it. Overall, am I negative to these changes? I think these changes are good. And they're a move in the right direction. We are definitely going in the PoE 1 direction with a number of these changes. And if anything, like we're stamping out old design choices that never existed. I'm quite surprised about the Hoover or the vacuum setup for the breach improvements for the splinters. They were very adamant about not putting such a mechanic in the game, especially with Chris Wilson at the helm back, a few years ago. This was a big discussion point in the community. So the reasoning behind this would be interesting to find out, and I'm sure they'll articulate this better. But yeah, no, this could be an indicator for changes down the track, which could create just more fluid currency pickup. I suspect this is also because of part of the key aim is for console players for this game, and console players don't want to constantly click buttons, they just want to walk over the top. I don't know how I necessarily feel about this because sort of, yeah, it's not a bad thing, but it could be an indicator for bad things to come. I don't know. We'll just have to sit tight and see where this sort of leads them to. Like, if it just becomes an auto looter, that does take away some of the significance of like loot drops and stuff like that. You can just run over absolutely everything. You don't ever have to click. But in another factor of it, I don't think that's a bad thing either because I'm quite lazy. So, anyway, is what it is. Anyway, if you like these types of videos, don't forget to like and sub to the channel, and we'll keep up to date with all things Path of Exile on my channel and other ARPGs as they come out. But anyway, until next time, I'll see you guys later, and have a good one.